Hello everyone, and welcome to the Westland Public Library's In the Kitchen program. I'm your host, Sarah, and welcome to a very merry Jane-uary event, where throughout the month of January, we will be celebrating the British novelist Jane Austen with various online discussions, polls, as well as events and activities. You can check our website at westlandoregon.gov/library/Jane-uary, or more conveniently, check the link in the description below. In today's event, we will be making Madeleines from Martha Stewart's Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, the classical novel, with recipes and recipes for the Modern Teatime Treat. Check the bloopers at the end for how many times it took me to pronounce that. For this recipe, you can access the list of ingredients in the description below. We're first going to start with 1/2 stick butter, or 1/2 cup butter, or 1 stick that's been melted and slightly cooled, although not solid, as you can see. We will also have 3/4 cup all-purpose flour, 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons sugar, as well as a scant 1/2 cup of almond flour, as directed by Martha Stewart. It can't be wrong. We also have a little flour set aside to dust our Madeleine trays later, as well as 2 tablespoons of lemon zest. We also have a 1/4 cup of salt, as well as a 1/2 teaspoon of salt and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Please don't put 1/4 cup of salt in your dish. That will be terrible. But we do have 1/4 teaspoon of lemon extract. Now, for those that are unfamiliar with zesting a lemon, we have our zester right here. It's actually more convenient to turn the zester over. I know a lot of people want to turn it facing down as you would a traditional grater and grate below. That's not a terrible plan, but it is a good way to cut your fingers up. An easier way to do this is simply take the lemon, you might be doing a lime zest, and just simply skate the zester over the lemon. It will catch the lemon zest conveniently in here that you can then scoop into a bowl. It will also save your fingers from being slashed up, as I know tends to happen when people are using a lemon zester. Now, to get started, we're actually going to combine our lemon zest and our 1/4 teaspoon of lemon extract into the butter and stir. This will just get the process started. And then if you haven't already, you're going to combine your dry ingredients, which you've seen I've done for the convenience of television, but they can all be thrown together right away into the pan. And then whisk to combine. Once everything is incorporated, which this almost is, okay, we will set that aside for now. Now the recipe calls for us to whisk in our salt with our eggs and then whisk until they are frothy. We are not foaming them, we are not building up volume by doing this. We are just simply going to go until they are frothy. Sorry, if you're at home and your bowl is getting away from you, you might want to consider putting a towel underneath it just so it doesn't move too much on you. My surface is pretty slick regardless of what I do with it, so I'm just going to hold it. So hopefully you're seeing this in our secondary backup camera. So I need to get nice and frothy. Okay, as you can see, bubbles are forming on the top, giving it a nice froth. Now, the recipe calls for you actually adding the flour and sugar to start, flour-sugar mixture. So it doesn't ask you to gently whisk it in or anything. It just simply says whisk it in. As you can see, this is forming a little bit of a batter. It's going to be quite thick. Not quite a choux pastry consistency, which will start to form into a ball, but it is definitely thicker than some other batters like cake batter and stuff that you would be working with. This actually asks you to then fold your butter mixture, your butter and salt that we added earlier, or lemon zest, my apologies, into it. Usually you fold items in with a spatula. Why you would choose to fold it as compared to just mixing it, we will trust in Martha Stewart. So a good folding technique is you're kind of cutting through and pulling over, usually to not release air. There's not a lot of air in this particular ingredient or in particular recipe and batter, so the chances of knocking it out are quite low. But again, we're just going to fold it as she instructs. You can be the judge. If this was, say, an angel food cake recipe, which we also have a video for on this channel, I would definitely be a lot more delicate than I am with it now. You're gonna also want to make sure to get all the batter off the sides so that you don't lose any of that beautiful, beautiful lemon zest that you've worked so hard to get. Okay, so we have our batter prepared. And now at this point, you're going to cover it and let it chill in your refrigerator for 2 hours or overnight. Since this is filmed specifically for you, I have some already chilled and ready to be used. But before I pull that out, what we're going to do, give me 1 second. Okay, and welcome back. So before we get our Madeleine out of the fridge, what we're going to go ahead and do is prepare our Madeleine trays. Now this calls for a large, long row of Madeleine trays. Of course, if you've known from other videos on this channel, you understand that my oven that I'm working with here is very small. It's only 12 by 12 by 9, so 9 being this way. So I had to purchase these cute little mini Madeleine trays in order to do our cooking demonstration today. In this case, what I'm going to do is put the Madeleine dough and follow the instructions, but instead of doing both sets at once, I'm going to put one in since I only have room for that, and then do the other one in just a little bit. So first I'm going to start with the traditional Madeleine tray, but I also have these cute puppy dog trays available on Amazon. I've pre-buttered them, and then to further encourage them to come out, we're actually going to lightly dust the pan with flour, all-purpose flour as compared to the almond flour. Make sure that there's a nice coating. Okay. Now, if I were a home cook, I would just simply put this back, since I plan on doing more, but I'm just gonna dust out some of the leftovers there so I don't get nice huge chunks of flour that will be absolutely delicious in the Madeleines. Just kidding, of course. So now I'm going to grab our Madeleine dough, which has been chilling now for a little over 14 hours. And it's nice and firm. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I have my piping bag prepared. This calls for a round tip, which I kind of have my convenient plastic one from a previous time. Traditionally doesn't get used with this bag, but it was actually a perfect 1/2 circle round, which she recommended, and it was convenient to have. I'm placing this in a cup to help me pour the batter in initially, and then I can go from there. So usually you would probably want a larger surface, or in terms of a larger cup, so it just holds it a little bit better, but for the time being, we're just going to use this. As you can see from our secondary camera, this is actually very thick and very hard. This would remind a lot of people of a shoe kind of consistency in that it is all gelatinous. There we go. That's why you usually want a larger cylinder to hold it up in, but we will just simply encourage this to go down and fold it out again just to get the rest of this, the small amount of dough that we have left. No dough left behind. Batter. I realize I keep interchanging it between batter and dough. And I will probably put a little pop-up right now about what it's actually supposed to be called. Okay. Now that lasts a little bit. Now, no matter what I try to do in terms of like, I don't know if you've seen on like the Great British Bake Off or other baking shows, but they like to spin it around, and this is a little too thick to do that. So even if I tried spinning it around, the gravity isn't going to really push it where I need it to be. Okay, so we got our little mini Madeleine trays. Woo! And the dough is already coming out. So what we're going to do is fill the Madeleine trays halfway. And the cylinder texture, or the cylinder tip, will actually give it a nice even consistency on top. You're kind of looking for a round. Madeleines traditionally have just a round top as compared to the bottom, which has the shells, the traditional shells that you see Madeleines. In this case, my little cap, I forgot, has a little slip in it, so I turned it around just so it would go in. And in a second, I'm going to give this a tap just to try to make it even. Now, you are probably judging my piping technique at home. A good way to do this is to actually wrap it around your finger if you're doing this, which gives you a better consistency, as you probably saw in the last camera. So my apologies. When you're filming in front of a camera, you kind of forget all the basic techniques when you're not used to doing it. So I'm so glad for those who have hung in with me. Okay, so we filled these about halfway. I'm going to just try to get that off. Use the saran wrap. Again, I'm putting this back in the fridge just to keep it cool while I do multiple batches with my tinier fridge. If you're at home, you would just go until you reach the end of this. This should fit the recommended about 12 Madeleines. This is going to go into a 350-degree oven for about 12 to 14 minutes, depending, of course, on your oven. I will see you then. Thank you. And welcome back. So, the Madeleines cooked in my oven for approximately 12 minutes. It was a little bit higher in temperature. Again, if you've seen previous episodes, you've heard me discuss our temperature before, because it's essentially an easy bake oven. 350 is roughly 350. So at the end of it, I got this wonderful shape. This is what you're looking for in a traditional Madeleine. It's this bump and then the seashells on the other side. Now, as you can see, they're a little bit darker than I would like them to be, and if I was making several batches, this is where I would correct my oven, as I did when I put in the cute little dog paw Madeleines. Again, they got this little bump in the center, and they're a lot lighter. They're not as crispier as this, because I had learned from the previous one to turn down my temperature, and I cooked it for about the same time, 12 to, at that point, 13 minutes, just to be sure, and they turned out beautifully. But now all there is to do is give it a sample. I'm going to try the traditional Madeleine just because all we did was really caramelize the exterior. That's the worst that happened, and I can't complain about that either way. I do wish I had a cup of tea. The lemon comes through spectacularly. This was actually something people could smell throughout the library, so lemon was never an issue, but the texture, it's nice and fluffy. In fact, when I took the dog paws out of the oven, you notice that there are some spots. These are little pockets of air that formed. This was because I forgot to tap down the tray, and so a lot of the batter didn't fall down to the bottom. Overall, though, these are spectacular, even though I did catch them just a little. I don't think any of my colleagues are going to complain. Thank you for joining us today in this very merry Jane-uary event. I hope you check out our website at wesleyantoregon.gov/library to learn about upcoming events. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for other events and activities. Have a great day. You know, now that I'm tasting this, I'm tasting a very almondy flavor, which is actually quite nice. With the lemon, it works quite well. So I just had to come back on camera and let you know that I could actually taste the almond flour, which I thought was an interesting addition. I didn't question it before, but now that I'm eating more of this, I can definitely taste it, and definitely with tea, I think it would be very fabulous. Pride and Prejudice, excuse me, oh shoot, that was really weird, and that got really distracting. Pride and Prejudice, a classic novel with recipes for modern Stewart's. Pride and Prejudice, classic recipes with, okay, my apologies, the classic novel with recipes and modern, sorry, dang it.